Crash bars for the Yamaha Tenere 700. Do you need them? Do you need upper, lower, or do you just go without crash bars? So I will show you what I've done on this setup on the Tenere 700. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel. This is part 2, the second stage of the protection package for my Yamaha Tenere 700. As you can see, I already have the Outback Motortek skid plate installed, which I talked about in my previous video, why I went with this particular skid plate. In this one, I'm gonna install crash bars. Now, you might be thinking, because I already installed the Outback Motortek skid plate, that I was gonna go with their crash bars. I don't actually like their crash bars, so I am not. I came up with another solution that I just loosely fit, and it looks like it's gonna work, that I think any of you out there that are looking for a good setup for crash bars, this might be a better option than the ones that wrap up really, really high. So I don't like the high crash bars. I don't like the way they look, and frankly, you're never gonna be landing on flat ground unless you're dropping your bike in the parking lot all the time, which does happen, and I would understand wanting to have that. But the option that I really wanted was I wanted the low crash bars. Part of the reason for that is it moves the weight down. I'm trying to get the weight as low as possible, but still add some protection. So I found some crash bars that do that. The other thing I really like about lower crash bars is putting accessory bags on. Now, not just for any miscellaneous stuff, but for my toolkit and my puncture repair kit. I like keeping that stuff that's heavy. My toolkit's 5 to 6 pounds, it's forward and it's low. So it starts changing the balance of the bike a little bit, bringing it down. So I can put that on both sides, and then it sticks out a little bit more because you have that bag, so it adds a little bit more protection for all those tip overs to protect the plastics and also the radiator, because now it's going to be sticking out further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit up the crash bars that I picked up, and we'll make sure they fit with this Outback Motortek skid plate. And if that's something you're interested in, you already know that it works. What I have here is the Hepco Becker lower crash bars. Now, I've already done a loose fitting on both sides when I was putting on the skid plate, just to see if it looked like it was going to fit. I haven't tightened everything up. It was basically just looking at it, setting it in place, and trying to decide if it was going to work, and it looks like it's going to work. The biggest concern I had was if this part of the skid plate was going to prevent the bars from mounting up and then having some contact. So once I get it all mounted up, I'll show you that part of it. Now, the reason I wanted these crash bars is because they're fairly small in size, they're going to be really low, and it has this crossbar that ties the both sides together, not just tying it to the frame. So you have some lateral rigidity that I really was looking for in a crash bar. So I'm going to get these installed. I'm not going to do an install video. I think for this it's just kind of putting it on, bolting it up. There's good instructions in the bag. If you're interested in this and I get enough comments that said, hey, can you show us how to do that? I'll do that. But I really just want to demonstrate to you that you don't have to use the crash bars that match with the company that you've gone with the skid plate, and that there are other options out there. The other thing I liked about these crash bars is the price. I paid like $200 for them, maybe $210 with shipping and handling, where some of the crash bar setups, they're $400+. They're really getting up there in price. So that was much more than I wanted to spend. So anyway, I'm gonna work on getting this fit, and once it's all together, I will show you how it's all on there, and the clearances between the crash bars and the skid plate, and if I have to make any modifications, trim any of the edges of the skid plate to get these to fit to do what I want it to do. So let me get to that. All right, one of the concerns I had in doing this install, and you can see I still have the bolts in here, is the spacing, because I put this bracket in for the skid plate, but it turns out that the crash bars require a spacer. So I'm gonna go without the spacer and just bolt it up that way, and maybe put a washer on the inside. So it looks like fitting wise, it's actually gonna be perfectly matched. Crash bars are on, skid plate is on, it's all fit, no areas of rubbing. I was able to get it mounted exactly the way I wanted it to. I did run into a couple problems, which I will go over. Now, the first thing that I talked about a little bit earlier was that there's a spacer that was already planned to be used for these crash bars down here at the bottom mount. And I found a spacer that was a little bit smaller that made up the difference between the bracket for the skid plate and the difference in width from the spacer that the Hepco Becker crash bars came with. So this all mounted up perfectly with the bracket. Now, I knew there was going to be a problem, there could potentially be a problem where the skid plate came all the way around here and it could impact where the crash bars is. On the left side, plenty of clearance, no issues whatsoever. However, on the right side, and I don't know if the camera is going to show it right now, but I'll get a good look at it. This extended piece touched the crash bar. I could still mount it, but it touched, and I knew that if I left it that way over time, those two pieces were going to rub and it would likely cut a hole into the crash bar, weakening it. So if I was to do it the way, if I was to do it with all the tools that I would normally have available to me, I likely would have just cut out the corner of the skid plate to make room for the crash bar. But I don't have all those tools. I wanted to get it mounted. I didn't really want to wait. So what I ended up doing is taking a crescent wrench and bending the corner of the skid plate around to make clearance for this. Now what ended up happening, the negative side, is the powder coating on, I don't think it's even, the powder coating on the skid plate chipped off. I don't care, the aluminum's not going to rust, but what I will do is I'll get some black spray paint and I'll paint this in here, so you'll never know if you didn't already know that I had made those modifications. Once I get this painted, unless you look really, really closely and you knew I had bent the skid plate out of the way, you wouldn't know. So I am super happy with the way this came out. I didn't want the high crash bars like I talked about earlier. A lot of crash bars mount, they clamp on to this down piece here. I didn't like that either. So this mounts to the frame, both bottom, upper and lower, and then with the cross piece that I had mentioned before. And now I can set my bag in here, put tools, put puncture repair kit. And it's enough off the side of the bike that this will be the first thing that impacts with the handguards and with this. I'm not really concerned about the plastics. If I hit plastics, it's because I'm in a really bad situation where crash bars probably weren't going to save it anyway because it's rocky, chunky, just a bad position. So anyway, if you have any questions about how I did this, leave those in the comments below. This is just, as I'm going through trying to find out the best way to build this bike to fit me, this is what I wanted to do based on my experience with my KTM 390 and having lower crash bars as opposed to something that was up high. And it brings the weight down. So yeah, it's adding weight to the bike, but it's low weight, which is important to me as well. All right, just a quick note after my first ride with the Hepco Becker crash bars is I noticed my toe when I was trying to get to the brake and shift levers. If I go too far, I am making contact. It's very slight. It's more of just an adjustment thing. It certainly won't keep me from getting to the brake or to the shift lever because obviously those are behind it, but it is a little bit different, just an adjustment. I don't think it'll be a big deal. But I've got big boots on. If you have very large feet with big boots, you might find this to happen a little bit more frequently. I wear a size 10, so a motocross boot is oversized. Just, yeah, quick note after the first ride with them this way. All right, so here it is, Hepco Becker crash bars. I've got my bags on here like I always do with puncture repair kit, and tools will go on the other side to move that weight forward and down. And I wanted the lower crash bars partly because it's taking kind of the BMW Boxer setup and it's having this stick out a little bit further. So hopefully the bike doesn't go over as far, or it may be making it a little bit easier as a pivot point to lift. So that's really why I wanted to go with the lower. I've seen a lot of other people with without crash bars that have been out and they have dumped their bike a lot, and the plastic fairings seem to hold up pretty well because you're hitting the handguard, and then also you know, they had skid plate that covered some of it. So I'll try it, see what happens, and in a year, 2 years from now, I'll give an update on how these bars have held up and if they protected the plastics well enough. So if you have any other questions about this setup, leave that in the comments below. If you've done something similar, also leave that in the comments below. I'm interested to see what other crash bars that you all are using on your Tenere 700. So let me know what your setup is if you watch this and you have crash bars on your bike. All right, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching. Get out, do some riding, ride safe, and I will see you out there.